not all talking, don't worry. And then let's see where we go. Just so you're aware, the call is being live streamed, so anyone who doesn't want their picture out there, please obviously take yourself so that you're not seen. And doesn't it always feel ages when you're trying to get your slides up? Everyone's waiting. There we go. So the roadmap for today, this is what I prepared, and I'm also extremely flexible. If there's certain bits that everyone wants to stay with longer, that's absolutely fine. If we touch on some things lightly, because that's okay and everyone's happy to move on, let's see where we go. So we've done a little bit of why you're here. We're looking at the 2021 core competencies and also the way the Coach Me model relates to those. We're also looking at what is mentor coaching. So anyone who does mentor coaching, please join in with that discussion from your perspective as well. And then we're going to take a few pauses for some different activities. We'll look at the new PCC markers and the way we can all up our game and reach for the future levels, even as MCCs. Obviously, we continue with professional development. There's new research coming out in coaching all the time, so there's always something for us to learn. You will have a little practice, and one of you will be the mentor, one of you will be the coach, one of you will be the coachee, and we will then provide feedback to the big group about how that went, and leaving with an actionable task, your takeaway that you will reflect on more, or you will research more, or something you want to leave and act upon from today. How does that look? Cool. So just a little bit about me. I'm the president of ICF Doha, one of the co-founders with Sylviane here, and also I was the co-founder in Bahrain as well. I'm a mentor coach on the ICF Coach Registry, Master Certified Coach, just renewed my MCC for the second time now, and also accredited supervisor with EMCC. And I created the Coach Me model. I'm a systemic team coach and all sorts of other stuff. You can have the slides later, so I don't bore you with that. So if you wish to take 1.5 CCEs from this, this is your first password. There's one now and there's one at the end, just for accountability, so we know that you've listened in, so that you can apply for the CCE at the end. I do like that font. Does anyone else like that font? So I mentioned at the start, during the ads, about looking at things upside down. Coaching, as we know, is all about deepening understanding, looking at things from different perspectives. So the reason I called this session, looking at the competencies and the markers upside down, I do like the work of George Malcolm Stratton, when he created one day with enthusiasm and creativity, these glasses where you actually put them on and you see the world upside down. And it's amazing how the brain takes all this and then after time puts it together in a different way to create understanding. So to turn things upside down, to watch pictures, to see things, to experience things, to understand things from different perspectives is always extremely useful. And it is that deep bit about coaching. So that's where the name came from. Just briefly, I'm doing a series of these webinars on a Thursday over the next couple of weeks, apart from there's one Thursday in December when I've actually got an exam. So all the dates will go out. We're looking at a systemic focus, somatic coaching, the model in more detail. We've got the mentoring one today. And then pricing, pitching and packaging. That's always a really interesting one. I've done that once before where coaches share what they package for the client as well as coaching, be it psychometrics and other things. And some people are as brave to go to mentioning pricing just to recalibrate, see where we all are with that. And then we've got a team profile that's team level 360, which we'll share later in other sessions. And we'll also do a session on reflective practice and an interactive one with Jamboard or maybe Miro on systemic constellations to deepen understanding and tap into the knowledge of our systems. So that's what's happening over the next 3 months. And also I have redesigned and turned upside down a program I've delivered before, a certification in mentor coaching. And if you attend, you get a professional certificate. If you do the assessments and you have supervision on your mentor coaching, and we listen to recordings together of you mentor coaching, then you can gain a certification. So what is mentor coaching? Who would like to share?
Depends on if you're looking at it from the ICF perspective or whether you're looking at it from a more holistic perspective. Which one are you after?
Which one would you like to share, Tracy?
The ICF, well, the ICF perspective is preparing people for credentialing purposes. So to enable them to increase their competency and their capability as a coach. So to work with them by unpacking the core competencies to enable them to develop as a coach, basically. More towards the credentialing process. So it's nothing about business building or not so much about, not necessarily about supervision, although that sometimes comes into it as well, but more from a practical, let's pass the exam kind of perspective.
And I think when supervision taps into it, for me, it tends to be about who they're being as a coach, which is obviously there in the new competencies as well. And then the other side, Tracy.
And the other side, from my perspective, is more around developing their or increasing their ability to be more developmental in their coaching. So to move them from the transactional to the transformational is one way of putting it, to enable them to deepen their coaching so that it's less about the problem and more about the person. So it's, I mean, there's a lot more to it than that, but that's in a nutshell.
Yeah, and that dips so much into the PCC markers as well, I feel, in terms of the coaching the person and not the topic or the issue. Tracy, you can come on anytime. You're making my life easy. Yeah, so absolutely. Mentor coaching is about, just like if you have any competencies in a competency framework, behavioral competency framework in an organization, it's markers that need to be demonstrated on levels so that people can get even better at what they do. And obviously with mentor coaching, it's all around the coaching competencies. And supervision is about enabling people to, as coaches, be at their best. Obviously, it comes from the field of counselling and psychotherapy, where, for example, if someone has a really tricky session, oh gosh, did I do the right thing? That's a fabulous topic to take to supervision. Other things in supervision are restoring ourselves in terms of energy. A lot of work people are doing voluntary with frontline workers at the moment, and that can lie heavy. So to be able to metaphorically, you know, wash this away in a supervision session makes us then in the next session we deliver be at our best. And then the other thing there where for me there's a slight overlap is that benchmarking, recalibrating and resourcing. So what other skills, models can I then learn to be able to, or different approaches, you know, whether it's somatic, gestalt, positive psychology, what other things can I learn to grow my repertoire to be the best coach that I can be in the world. So, any questions in terms of the difference between mentor coaching and supervision?
Claire, can you share, please, maybe an example that may help?
Sure.
In both.
Sure. So with mentor coaching, I've done about I've done a lot of mentor coaching sessions this week because we've come to the end of a program a little while ago. So if someone is in that session and they're going for ACC and their recordings are showing that on occasions they're saying more than one question at a time, then that's something that would be mentioned in mentor coaching. Because if a coach asks a number of questions at one time, it can be confusing for the coachee or the client because they don't quite know which one to focus on. The other thing is around things like the length of the question. The more direct, the cleaner the question, the more succinct, the more impactful the question is. So in mentor coaching, you can also play with, let's listen to that bit of the recording. What other question can you ask at that point that makes it snappier? Okay, so that's the type of thing that may come into mentor coaching. And those things that I have mentioned are mapped to the ICF competency model. In supervision, let me think of an example I've taken to supervision. I've worked as an external coach and I've also worked as an internal coach. So one supervision, I have a number of supervisors, and one session was about the line between I'm working with colleagues who are friends and I'm training them in coaching competencies, and I am also coaching them. Now that is a number of different hats. And if I am with them out of work and the conversation makes me feel a little uncomfortable because I feel it's tapping into a coaching conversation as opposed to a friend conversation, what way do I professionally and with compassion deal with that? And that was a great coaching supervision session for me in terms of always be contracting, recalibrating, ensuring that there are transparent, clear boundaries in terms of the different hats and making sure that the people that I'm working with, who are also friends, are clear about those hats as well. Would anyone else who is a supervisor or a mentor like to share any examples as well to bring these to life?
I can share one with my video on for a second. This is Maureen from Paris. I'm in a supervision course, actually. So one example would be I brought to my supervision was a client that I'm coaching who was recently promoted, and his situation is complicated, and I won't go into too much details here, but there's a lot of different, and at the same time, I'm experiencing interest in.
You're breaking up a little bit. Do you want to take your camera off?
Oh.
Because we're missing a little bit of what you're saying.
All right, so sorry, it does say internet unstable. Just the dynamics of the relationship between me and my coachee and the coachee and the bigger organization. Mm-hmm. So there's so much going on, and bringing that to supervision helps me have a balcony or helicopter view of the situation.
Brilliant. And it's definitely bringing in there a systemic element.
Yes.
What's the knowledge in the system? Thank you for sharing. Anyone else like to share before we move on?
Yeah, I've got a quick one around parallel process, and which is more to do with supervision, occurred in supervision. So parallel process, in a nutshell, really is when me as the coach is experience or has experienced something that the client is also experiencing and is all talking about in the coaching session, and there may be a collusion with the client around whatever is going on for them in that moment about the challenge or the issue that they're dealing with. So it may be a collusion, or it may be a complete triggering where you as the coach feel unskilled or unable to support them in that moment because of the trigger that's occurring in you. So taking that to supervision allows you to reflect on what's going on, to see what is actually occurring in that parallel process, to externalize it, to work through it, and then be able to manage yourself. So basically, in a nutshell, to develop your capacity to be able to be more present for your client at that time.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tracy. So are they both a little bit clearer now?
Yes, thank you so much. Thanks, Claire, and all the mentors. Thank you.
There was a question, Claire, in the chat box from Pravin around how are both of these different from peer review coaching? And my response to that is that a peer is somebody who may not be trained or highly skilled in mentor coaching and or supervision. So, for example, I attend peer supervision. It's quite a robust group because we've been together now for 10 years. We meet monthly and quarterly we have a formal supervisor, but the peer review piece can be problematic if you're working with a very new group of coaches, because the level of skill and knowledge and competence can be quite limited. So my recommendation is, sure, peer supervision or peer mentoring is fine to a certain extent, but I think you really need to get the experts involved.
I agree entirely. And I've heard of a number of coaches, if peer supervision, there's too much of a gap, then it can actually frustrate coaches on both ends of that continuum. So if people are slightly closer together, not this close, but closer, that can be helpful. There is one really interesting thing as well about peer mentoring. Sometimes naive questions are asked by coaches here or coaches here, and it's amazing what comes out of that. Naive questions are a fabulous thing for us, really, metacognition, re-understanding our own thought processes. So there are advantages and there can be frustrations if the gaps are too wide. Thank you. So, mentor coaching from a different angle. So I have a task. I'm going to put you into breakout rooms. If you want to take a picture of this screen, you can. And I want you to think about, in the breakout rooms, what might the duties be, the roles and the responsibilities of a mentor coach? What traits are needed? So imagine it's a job description and you're writing the person specification. And what competencies? What do you want to see when they're in action? What do they need to demonstrate to be at their best as a mentor coach? Is that clear? Okay, so I will put you into a few rooms. And how does 8 minutes sound?
Good.
Let's go for it. See you shortly.
I feel I'm quite new to the process of learning the kind of systems and structures and frameworks, and I feel I come from maybe a slightly different perspective. So would it be okay if I just explain what I do?
Please do.
Thank you. So I come out of working in the arts for 30 years. So working at quite a senior level in arts institutions and working with contemporary artists. And I have taken, I started a coaching and mentoring practice in 2014 in between a number of roles, and since April I've committed to it full time, and partly just to respond to the COVID situation and the Black Lives Matter kind of movement. I just started offering services to artists and creative professionals who needed support. So it started as a kind of offer to almost be like a kind of mechanic for offering a service to creatives who were feeling slightly adrift, and it's just kind of grown and blossomed, and so now I'm working with artists and creative professionals all over the world. And there is a slight blurring of roles in that, because of my experience, a lot of artists and creative professionals actually want advice as well as the kind of coaching support. So I'm really interested in learning the moments where I ask those deep reflective questions so that people can answer their own challenges, but there are moments where they actually want some solutions because they can't think, they don't understand the framework they're operating within. So that's I'm relatively new. I want to be trained. I'm committing to it full time, and I want to learn all of the new thinking that's going to enable. I think because creative professionals and artists are thinkers in 4D, you know, they're deep thinkers. They really have a somatic understanding of the world, and they're incredibly perceptive. There's a lot for me to learn in order to take them to the next level. So I'm not in a position to, at the moment, kind of tell you what kind of style I have, other than the kind of deep listening and empathetic kind of response to their situation. I can understand where they're coming from very quickly because I trained as an artist. So there's a lot in what they want to achieve in a very short space of time. And so I'm learning a lot of things on the job. And now I feel I'm in a position I want to get some support. I want a coach, and I would like to train professionally.
So may I ask one clarifying question?
Yes.
If I understood correctly, with your background, which is amazing, you have not done any official coach training up
Not
until
yet.
now.
No.
Okay.
Exactly.
And that's the big difference, because today we're talking about mentoring, which is very specific, and brought to the table would be specifically supervision.
That's
How
right.
are you showing up with your clients because of your amazing background and how much you can contribute? How do you take off that hat, put your coaching hat on, et cetera, and that's all the dynamics around it, which is
exactly. So my website and a company at the moment is called Artist Mentor. So I was coming from that perspective, but now professionals are approaching me from all over the world, and so that's moving more into coaching, which is different. So that's the question and the challenge for me that I would love to learn from you guys. So I'm definitely the newbie here.
Okay, great. And let me just, since the time is short. Nelly, what's
Sure.
your background in coaching and mentoring?
Thanks a lot. So basically, I've started my journey in coaching starting in 2011, and I'm a formal coach since 2014. I graduated then back in the time of with Noble Manhattan, which at this time was not ICF accredited. As I started, actually, I have a senior accreditation, a senior coach accreditation with that company. I used to be a mentor there, so I have seen mentoring from their perspective. Later on, I have taken also mentoring coach training with ICF accredited company, because I'm also now part of ICF for the next. I'm actually, my background is from academic science, cancer research, moving into human resources later. And now I'm currently focused on career development, as well as also academics coaching, as well as just, of course, working on just the mindset coaching, and just really having transformation in the respects of professional coaching also. So ICF is doing it, using also some focus on, for instance, career development, career transformation, understanding our mindsets. I also enjoy somatic, just the embodiment experience as well. So very broad experience from coming from also, let's say, emotional intelligence, the competences of emotional and social competences inventory as well. So trying from really a little bit more holistic, but I'm very happy to be here, because I mean, I'm on one side pursuing PCC with ICF, and also here just to meet more professionals to understand, to be inspired, to understand more about the competences. And if I can contribute to the questions that they were asking by some way, like what do we need to do in terms of the questions? Or would you like me to give you the chance also to introduce yourself first, and then we can go into questions?
Yeah, I think we have 1 minute left.
Yeah, please, can you tell us about yourself?
Yeah, we're curious to hear about you. Yeah.
Okay, just you can find me on LinkedIn, but the thing is, I'll reach out to both of you on LinkedIn.
Thank you.
Corporate European product leader, went into intercultural training, into coaching in 2005, went through the process through the schools that were not ICF approved, worked on the global marketing for ICF, and have my PCC, mentor coaching, and now I'm going into supervision. So one thing to Carrie, is that it?
Yes, thank you.
You go to an ICF approved school, even though I'm not somebody, it's just it's easier.
Yes,
it makes life easier. That's all.
Yeah,
but
finding that school in the UK, I guess, is what I'm kind of also trying to suss out.
I can give you some advice. I'll connect on LinkedIn.
Oh, thank you so much. That would be amazing. So I'm sorry, I know I took up so much time.
No,
we haven't answered the question.
It's interesting.
To hear you.
Thank you so much. I feel reassured already. So thank you.
Fingers crossed for the training and everything to everyone. Thank you for the.
Thank you. I'm not sure we answered the question, but I guess
I think we modeled the question.
Yeah.
One of the answers is role modeling, and the other one is being open.
Yes.
Open-minded, observing, and listening.
Yes.
So there you go.
Thank you.
That's we did it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Okay.
Right.
I think we have to leave.
I'm going to be ejected. I'll see you. Yep.
Thank you.
See you.
See you. Bye.
We jumped back in, even though we had more to share, because we didn't want to be right?
So a little bit longer would have maybe been better. Is that the same for all groups? It's always always a fine call.
Any amount of time is less.
So the other way around. So let's take one at a time in terms of the, that's lovely. Sherry says she's met some amazing women. Yay, lovely. So there's always a knock-on effect of these types of sessions. And I actually like it when there's fairly small numbers as well. It feels cozier. Let's go with duties first of all. What did you come up with in terms of duties for the mentor coach? What do they have to do?
I'll speak on behalf of my team, and my team members can also contribute where I would not have covered that point.
Thank you.
One point that Alma has talked about is giving feedback to the mentee, that is the coach who's getting mentored. And we had a little longer discussion, and maybe people like you could give more clarification on that to just give some more insight. I feel that the mentor is also required to, as a part of his duty, required to advise, instruct the mentee, who is a coach getting mentored, for enhancing his performance. While in case of coaching and in coach and coachee relationship, the coach is not supposed to give or is not expected to instruct or give advice, can only give constructive feedback. But in mentor-mentee relationship, mentor is required to, or maybe he can give the feedback and instructions and advice for the enhancement. That's what is something we would like to get more clarity. Is that what is right understanding?
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you imagine coaching as a relationship, there's equal power with the coach and the coachee. Whereas mentoring, it's just like any mentoring, I don't mean age, but the older, wiser type of mentality. So they are more experienced. So they are allowed to tell and advise. That is part of the mentor's role. Brilliant.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Any other group, and the feedback bit we will mention in a bit more detail as well during the session.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyone else in terms of duties? What else is there?
I guess with the same group, there was something about mixing sincerity with assertiveness and tough love. In other words, just give from the heart what you observe as a needed improvement, while at the same time be kind and gentle.
Yeah, so the kind and gentle, the word that comes out for me is with compassion.
Right.
And yet, if there's also the designing the alliance, what do you need to get out of this session? And notice I use the word need as opposed to want.
Right.
For a mentor coach to do their best job, they are open, honest, transparent, and direct and clear with the feedback.
Absolutely. We struggled with which words to use to marry all those meanings together, but I guess compassion is the word.
So it may not be the perfect word. It was the word that came up for me when you were speaking.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Thank you. Anything else?
In my team, with Tracy, Kathy, and Khaled, we discussed also the, in addition to what was mentioned before, that we can assess a recording, but we cannot guarantee success. So it's also a very important point that Tracy mentioned in our conversation. So it also implies that we're able to explore, be as partners, be vulnerable, and talk about some improvement areas freely, openly, with a genuine interest of supporting the growth of a coach.
Brilliant. And what comes to mind for me is, where do they need to be and what way can we serve them best to get there in the time frame that they wish to get there. I love that bit about bringing in, there is no guarantee, absolutely. And what I like to do as well is use some role-playing sessions so that they can reword and re-practice bits. So the feedback isn't just like a, you know, conversation, it's actually a little bit more interactive as well. Anyone else in terms of duties, or should we move on to traits? So what have we got around traits? What type of person, if it was a person specification, does a mentor need to be?
I guess competency came up, knowing the area very well, being expert.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Knowing the competencies inside out.
Right.
Anything else?
Good listener and the one who would create a safe space for the mentee to
Brilliant.
feel comfortable to learn.
Because if there's psychological safety, we learn more. Absolutely. Anything else there? So what are the competencies of a mentor coach? What types of things, a little bit linked to the traits, anything that they need to demonstrate and show? Ability to sense beyond words, absolutely. Thank you, Sherry.
A masterful coach?
So this is interesting. Yes, and if you're going for ACC, the mentor coach should be one step ahead, so they should be PCC. And I think this is something as well that was alluded to by Tracy before. If someone going for ACC is mentored by an ACC, it may be that ACC is amazing and they've only, you know, got their 100 hours. That's why they're ACC. However, if someone's at the next step, they have got the stamp of approval that they can demonstrate those competencies, and that is advantageous. Thank you. And then also Sherry mentioned there about, looking at things from different perspectives. And one of the things in terms of the competencies that comes out for me there is open to different approaches. Coaches are in many different cultures and places in the world. So that needs to be, there is no one right or wrong way to coach. There are many. And culture and all sorts of things are at play there. Anything else in terms of competencies?
I think it's being able to know the competencies inside out and back to front, so that you're able to support the mentee in understanding exactly the gap between where they are and where they need to get to reach the required level, if we're talking about mentoring for credentialing. But I mean, in that process as well, we're just supporting their growth anyway. But I think the ability to support them around knowing the competencies well is very useful.
Absolutely. And all of that in terms of what's been mentioned in the chat around listening, observing, sharing, getting curious, asking them how they feel they've done without telling straight away, because that helps as well the mentor to calibrate where things are at in terms of how the mentee feels. And then cultural sensitivity, absolutely, thank you for that in the chat box. So I will share my screen again, and we have the cheat sheet. So what I've done here, I've taken words from the different, there we go. I've taken words from the different duties and the traits and the competencies, and I'm focusing here on ICF. So builds self-confidence, provides examples, measures. And what Tracy mentioned there in terms of it's knowing the competencies inside out, but how do they play out? What does a coachee or client experience when a coach demonstrates that competence? Obviously, the ethical elements are at play here totally during mentor coaching, as in any coaching situation. The guarantee we mentioned, keeping time and all the other types of contracting elements, and the fees and the scope and so forth. Any comments there around the duties? So this one is quite a lot. We've got here the traits, and the traits are quite green, green for growth. So starting at the bottom, accountability. The exemplary way, and ICF stipulate this, is to listen to a recording. The feedback takes place, written and verbal. And then the mentee goes away and they do another session, and then they bring it back, working on demonstrating the competencies at a higher level, keeping their strengths and also growing their development areas. So that links in with the accountability piece. And that approach, sometimes mentees want to send all recordings at once, and yet that doesn't always allow for the growth, because the same things may come up in all the recordings, which are sometimes, you know, low-hanging fruit, quick fix that they can move forward with before they deliver another recording. And then we've got impact. Mentor coaching sessions need to be impactful, and a trait of encouraging and praising, you know, the competence of championing, supporting. If they don't quite get it, what way can we work with them to enable understanding? Different models, and also modeling best practice. Empowering, you can do it, that growth mindset mentality. Partnering with them. If they're focusing on a certain thing, powerful questioning, and that's what they want us to look at in a certain recording, we're partnering to do that. And trustworthy and sound judgment. And then the next one we've got here, the competencies of a mentor coach. So without me reading them all out, have a look at that. Which ones did we get and which ones have we not mentioned as of yet? We've got the culture one at the top. Self-managing. I love this one because sometimes we can have a perception in terms of where this coach may be with their competencies. And if we hear something and we're feeding back and they say something that triggers something in us, the best thing is to be with them where they're at. The worst thing is, oh no, don't say that, or really? That type of thing that closes down conversations. Any other areas there that we've not mentioned? We mentioned the psychological safety, and also the meta view, the helicopter view was brought in before as well. An awareness of the way that ICF assesses, obviously very important there as well. So what we're moving into now is the actual core competencies. And because of time, this is more of a whistle-stop tour, and then the practice that I invite you to take part in is around a certain part, okay? So in terms of where the competencies were and where they are now, this is my take. So we've got the old 11 on the right and the new 8 on the left. And I've identified where some of them now move in to the right. So for example, at the bottom, managing the progress, accountability, the planning and goal setting and designing actions are all there under facilitates client growth. And number 2 is an important one, embodies a coaching mindset. So that's all about who we are being as a coach and not just for what we are doing. Anyone, any comments on this? Okay, so just briefly, the Coach Me model is non-linear, it's cyclical, results is a good place to start, and yet if the coachee comes at the start of a session and they want to talk about the action they've taken since the last session, we go with them where they're at and clarify, obviously, what is the specific goal, the results you want to get out of this session. So if, for example, they say, I want a promotion, it's unlikely, hey, maybe it can happen, but it's unlikely that they can get a promotion in that coaching session. So specifically, what do you want to leave the session with around your goal to get a promotion? Can you see how that goes finer into the results for the actual session and also brings in the way that result fits into the bigger picture? Now, all the new competencies that start from January, as you know, are linked to the different elements of the model. And it's also bringing in more of a systemic focus in terms of a focus on the wider systems. What do our clients need us to focus on as well? And what are our systems asking from us? I am doing another CCE session on this. Any questions there before we move on? Okay, so in terms of the competencies, they came about because ICF's been going for 25 years and it's taken about 2 years for a team of subject matter experts and experienced coaches, over 1,000, to work together to create these new competencies that were done in this way. If your job is a coach, what competencies are needed for that role? And that was the mindset in terms of the way they have been created and written. And it was also created in terms of critical incidents. What do coaches do and say or not do and not say that enable deepening of understanding and for coaches or clients to move forward with their actions? What creates shifts? That is in the competencies, because that is obviously what it's all about. And yet it was a 3 to 5 year project from its very infancy, and it's data driven because there was lots of surveys went out as well. ABCDEF, I'll mention that later, always be contracting is the essence of this, and the contracting element has more of a focus than it was on the 11 because it's in a number of different areas. It's almost like an umbrella overarching the whole of the competencies. Notice as well in the new ones, the wording, verbs, it's about actions, what the coach does. The systemic I've mentioned, and things like intimacy. The word has been difficult in terms of some cultures and languages for translation. So therefore, notice has been taken of those types of things so that different words that are transcending have been used to support all coaches. So what's new is the sharing. What this means is it is okay for a coach from January to share their experience if they feel it is totally relevant for that coachee, It's not too long. It's not about ego and about them. So it is taken that ICF, of course, advocate non-directive. However, to hold back on the sharing could be actually counterproductive. Okay. And then vulnerability is mentioned specifically. You'll see that competency 2, item 2. The non-attachment to the outcome for the coachee. And we've mentioned it, we've moved from 11 to 8. There's more around presence, giving space, being there in sometimes not knowing. And also looking at the trends and patterns. So when we coach people at a deep level, the type of questions such as, what other times does this, let's say it's time management, what other times does time management impact who you are being in your life? Because if they've got time management issues at work, it's quite likely this is happening in other areas of their life as well. So by identifying the patterns, we're going deeper, and that leads to more long-term, sustained, positive, transformational impact, as opposed to just quick fix change, which isn't always lasting. And then, instead of creates awareness, evokes awareness. And evokes is more empowering, and it was seen to be also more partnering. And then the merger of the, as I showed on the last bit, in terms of the powerful questioning, direct communication, and so forth. Any questions there before we move on? Okay. So what we've got on the next sheet here is what's happening in terms of thinking, what's being experienced, what ways can we shift to behave in terms of these new competencies? So sometimes in initial coach training, or if people are new to coaching, powerful questions are obviously the right thing because it leads to non-directive. However, the way that the questions are asked enables powerful questioning, and that is front and center. And then the other thing there on the right is sustaining impact. So that links to the Coach Me model in terms of transition planning. And what's important there, and it's embedded in the new competencies, is what way can you cope with setbacks or dependencies when moving forward with this action? Extremely important in any coaching, and especially in project management and workplace coaching. And then tripartite. So contracting also, yes, we contract with the person we're coaching. And yet in the system, it may also involve quite rightly contracting with their line manager or HR and so forth. And then it was there, and it's still there, looking at things from different perspectives. At the top here, expansive on the right. What do we do to enable our coachees to think about things wider and deeper? And one of the things is, again, linked to the PCC markers, spaciousness. So that is being comfortable with silence. And it is a more higher order skill. And I mentioned about the language being more congruently translated, and then tapping into positive parallel processes. Gosh, that's a lot of P's. So noticing ourselves as coaches, what's happening for us, being more reflective, and also using self as instrument. What reaction did I experience in my body when the coach or the client said X? Notice what's going on, and we can share what was going on for us. a good sort of formula is say what you experienced and then ask a question around it with no attachment. By tapping into intuition, we support the coachee or client. Anything around those that you'd like to share? So just take a minute yourself. We've been together now for an hour. Share with your mic on or in the chat box. What's your learning so far? What's shifted in you? What are you curious about? Anyone like to share?
Yes, it's Sylviane here. I think that in my mentoring sessions, there's a lot of questions about what am I allowed to do as a coach and what am I not allowed to do? Am I allowed to share just what you just mentioned, share what I experience and then ask a question? They say, what are the boundaries? And they're afraid to not being a coach if they're not strictly asking questions. And just to feel legitimate that you have your emotions and sharing your thoughts, sharing your what's emerging for you, sharing a metaphor or something that you are seeing, feeling, observing, is something that is enriching the coaching conversation.
It's adding to the session.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's really tricky as well in terms of people new to coaching. It's almost like there's the tick list of what we can and there's the can't. And there's so much more.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. If we use the PCC markers, I will coach this way by ticking all the boxes, what would we end up with? Robots. And the presence would be reduced because of that. Thank you, Sylviane. Anyone else like to share? Something in the chat. What have we got? Yeah, moving more into partnering or empowering. I love it. And then positive parallel processes is sparking a reflection. Cool. Yeah, so it's interesting, positive and negative parallel processes. So when we identify a parallel process, what's our gut reaction? Is it ooh, or is it ooh? That's the sort of positive and negative in that there. And what else have we got? I got ACC last month. Mabruk, well done. Yeah. So here's something that's really interesting. A lot of people see that mentor coaching is for the credential, done, tick list, that's that. For me, and I'm curious what others think, it is an ongoing thing because just like driving, we can get into bad habits. I'll be honest, a fortune when going for my PCC, I was addicted to mental coaching, much to my husband's fear, because it was like, am I ready? Am I there? And actually supervision got me putting those recordings in. And yes, of course, I learned so much. I did well over the hours required for the mental coaching because I was getting so much out of the mental coaching sessions. So what's wrong with, in the new year, playing with the new competencies and having a mental coaching session around them? That would be a really useful thing to do. Someone else did there as well. Yeah. Oh, there's a session, isn't it, for people going through mental coaching. What way can we support you to get those recordings sent? Absolutely. Shall we move on?
I just want to add something in there because in the last few months I've been coaching mentoring a number of coaches who have thousands of hours, and have, you know, renewed their PCC multiple times and are now moving to MCC, and listening to their recordings, them listening back to their recordings and me then listening and giving feedback, they're cringing because we're both cringing because they've realised the bad habits that they've fallen into. So just literally that process of, as I've said to all of them, ideally you record yourself a few times throughout the year and just listen back, even if it's not going to anybody else, but just to listen to yourself coach is such a valuable experience. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. I love it, Tracy. And what I also recommend, which I'm sure many of you do as well, record as much as possible, because then we don't have that stage fright. And obviously, with permission, the people that we're coaching are fine with it being recorded because they're used to it as well. Yeah. So it's an ongoing thing. And then, of course, one-on-one mentoring is more expensive, and group mentor coaching is a fabulous thing. Now and again, we do a session and it's like, I felt a little bit stuck in that session. It can be mentoring or it can be supervision. And why not take that, with permission for the recording being shared, to group mentor coaching, even spontaneously? Great, thank you. So the second password for the CCEs is embodiment. Again, with my favourite font. Yeah, Yusuf, absolutely. ICF pledge, they will continue to keep evolving, because coaching's changed. You know, having internal and workplace coaching was unusual. It used to be exec coach goes in and coaches those people at the top, and that's why things the competencies need to evolve as well. So the little piece now is just briefly going through the different elements. We've looked at the competencies, okay? If you remember back here, we had them, okay, as the headings. I have an activity for you, and it goes like this, totally related to embodiment. I'm going to put you in breakout rooms again, and thinking about the foundations. Think about co-creating relationships. Think about communication. Thinking about cultivate learning and growth. Here is what you're going to do. Into breakout rooms, and I want you to embody each of those 4 areas. Okay, so I will demonstrate, and if you can, if you got the email, move around. If you've got a phone, it's easier, but we can always move our laptop. Play together in your group to come up with one sound and one action to embody those 4 areas. Okay, so you're not allowed to copy this one, but for me, the relationship one is like this. You know, there's the give and take, and it's equal. So it might be, this is for you, and here's my learning. Okay? Anyone confused? Anyone a bit nervous? Okay, so what I'm going to do is invite one of you to rephrase the instructions for this activity. Who would like to do that? Because that is actually a skill for mentor coaching as well. What is the activity? Would you like me to share again? Okay, I'll bring it up. So the third, it's the 4 areas of the competencies. So I'll leave it on a sec just in case you want to take a picture. D, cultivating learning and growth. C, for communication. B, co-creating the relationship. And A, setting the foundations. Okay? And I want you to together. Using your body, make an action and a sound to help you connect with those 4 things. Okay, and I'll put you back in the same groups as before, just to save time so that introductions don't happen again. And this time it's just 5 minutes. Are you ready? When you come back, we will ask you as a group to do it, okay, with your sound on, so we can all hear you and see your actions. Have fun.
Hi.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Oh, difficult. Can you hear me?
Yes, definitely. Yes, can hear you. Okay. Setting the foundations. What should we go for?
Well, so the question is, do we do it for all of them? Do we, because we're going to just show one action, right? So I'll give you mine. How's that?
Yes,
I'll be first this time.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, ready? Yes. Voilà.
Oh, lovely. I like
Coming
that.
together in a self high five.
I like that.
One question, is it for one of all, including all of them? So this is what you're doing? Or just is it something like just for the foundation? So what is your connection with that?
I think it's whatever you.
For all of them, yeah, beautiful. Yeah, this is my
one. If there's one that calls to you, or is it an embodiment? It's really what is feeling inside, I think.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's for me. You've perfectly captured all of it, the whole experience of coming together and transformation in terms of taking somebody to a new place. So it's like a fountain of life, or a kind of it's like a rocket to the moon. So I really like that. For me, that gets the thumbs up. You've really expressed that, but also with the energy and gusto of celebrating difference through coming together. So yeah, well done. I think you've captured it perfectly. And that's not just being lazy, but I'm a very visual person, so it really worked for me. It was almost like a volcano as well, like a kind of erupting. So I got the sensation as well as the kind of inner and outer coming together. So yeah, great. Thank you.
Well, I don't want to steal the show.
No.
What are you feeling?
It's beautiful. I also will share my perception. The first thing which came to me as an embodiment, or just of course like the first thing, because I was speaking about partnership, and the first thing that I just really imagined was actually having a kiss. And the kiss of actually, this was something that I did today when moving out from the session, at the end of the session, with the person I was mentioning, because I just wanted to express actually my support and something. This was already outside of the session, but while I'm sharing this, I just really imagine the hands giving as well, the hands giving the hands of the support, giving the heart to heart. So this is something that immediately came to my mind when we spoke about embodiment, and I know that it comes to all of them, but this is my my perception of this word. So just because it's just I imagining being more heart to heart. What I really love in the model that we've spoken with the words, and I really love that hands coming together. This was something. This is very similar. This is something which also comes close to the heart, and this is something comes like, of course, like it's very. I find very much things which are very similar to what I was feeling, and this, of course, like for instance, I also will be using, for instance, the hands as well. So this is my embodiment.
Yeah, great.
Yes.
I like all of those. It made me think when you were saying, it made me think of hearts, you know.
Yeah.
I was also thinking about the sort of world, the globe, that kind of
Sure.
yeah, but also something about closing the eyes to get into an imaginative space with somebody. But I know that would seem or appear like I was not present. So, but as I was thinking,
really?
I was just wondering whether, you know, for me, when I close my eyes and I sense you there, I can kind of try and get inside your world a little bit. So I was thinking, about that kind of extrasensory power of thinking without talking, I guess.
Well, that's presence, and
Yes,
and I use that with my clients when they come in. It's just to close this, you know, and if you want to close your eyes or whatever you need, and so closing your eyes is centers us.
You know, it was lovely then. There was loads of smiling faces when you were coming back.
Full of fun and action and creativity.
Yay, perfect, perfect. So, should we have your group first then? Are we new to it?
I guess.
So we want the action and the sound.
Oh my God.
3, 2, 1.
So, foundation, relationship, communication, learning and thinking, heart, gut, and knowledge, and then
growth.
Take off.
Yeah, fabulous.
Alma and Andy put us together really well, by the way.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Curious, what was it like doing that activity, connecting, embodying the competencies?
We had lots of fun. It gave us energy, and we had teamwork and lots of laughter and movement. So it was very, very good.
Cool. And it helped you remember them?
Yes, because we had few options for each, and then we said, no, let's do this better and this better. And then we had consensus. So it was very nice teamwork.
Yay. And this is something you can use in mental coaching to help the mentee to connect with things that are their growth edge so that they stay on their edge. Who's the next group? Sherry, I seem to be looking at you top right on my screen. How about your group?
Okay, well, I will do my best. I think we had an amazing, all-encompassing expression of, if I got that right?
The foundation, coming together, partnering, high five, a heart.
Yes.
And blow.
Beautiful.
But we had fun.
Yeah.
We did, and we had also from Nelly, we had some more. I think that was quite common, that idea of coming together. We had a kiss as a kind of giving, and a kind of offering up, and we also had a heart for the kind of love and communication. There was a little bit of getting into the zone with the feeling the client rather than just communicating. So we kind of came at it from all angles, all encompassing, and I learned a lot from my colleagues in the room. So thank you.
Cool. Seems you
Same
did
here.
turn them upside down. Good. I like the way they flow together as well. So I believe we have one more group. Are you ready? Final group. Kathy and your group.
Okay. We didn't break it down into the 4 components, but it was a hand on the heart with one on top, closing the eyes, and an exhale of the moment and being together.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And what was it like doing the activity for your group?
I can just speak for myself, but it was fine. It was slightly embarrassing doing it in a group when I've done that in a one-to-one session with you know, a coachee. So I think that was more difficult for me, but it was safe space to do it. So yeah, good to stick the neck out a little bit.
Mabruk, well done. And thank you all for playing. So we are now moving into the PCC markers, the last bit of the session today. This was, caveat at the start, a whistle-stop tour. There's a lot here, and any bit of this we could have probably spent 3 hours on, to be fair. So PCC markers are there, as we know, to assess a recording of a coaching conversation fairly, reliably, defensibly. And if someone else did that assessment, they would come up with the same level for that particular recording, which obviously is really important, and to support the development of the person who is being assessed. So a really important thing about this is, and it relates to the competencies as well, it's not the coach and the coachee, it's leaning into the relationship as a thing in itself, and that's where the best coaching takes place. So I've broken down the essence of the markers. So competency 1 demonstrates ethical practice, fully using the code of ethics. And I've not written a lot on this because obviously we can all get the link to the ethics on the ICF website. The important thing for me, my takeaway, remains consistent in the role of a coach. So if someone's going for ACC and at one point they mentor for a tiny little bit or any other role, then as long as it's not unethical, it's not the end of the world. For PCC, the words are there, remains consistent in the role of a coach. And remember, PCC, professional certified coach. So I think that fits well. And then the next one, embodies a coaching mindset. So we've just done a bit of embodiment. My question for you to inquire about is not what you're doing as a coach. Who are you being as a coach when you're working at PCC or beyond? What are you bringing to that relationship? Yeah, sense of psychological safety there in the chat box, thank you. And then the other things here, ongoing learning and development, open to learning. That stuff from Carol Dweck is just written all over this in terms of entity. I know it now, I'm there, finished. An incremental learner, and there's always more to learn. Not the I'm at something new and I fall off the cliff. It's okay and we'll move forward together. And that is leaning into the coaching relationship. So the mindset's really important. And then what ways do you engage in partnership? A little question there. And also the thinking, the feeling and the emotions, the different elements. Seeing continual improvements through self-learning, absolutely. Thank you, Yusuf. So then on to the next. Competency 2 in a bit more detail. So I've put the ABCDEF there. The contracting isn't just before the coaching project or the coaching sessions. It's in the session at the start and throughout. So recalibrating at certain points. Is what we're discussing right now meeting the goals that you needed for this session? That's a fabulous check-in halfway through. And then being open to diversity, using reflective practice. I mentioned self as instrument before, and self-managing I mentioned as well. And then sometimes with ACCs or people working towards ACC, I'd love other people's perspectives. What I notice is sometimes popcorn. Are we going to the blue skies and this, or is this session down here? And with experiential learning, we tend to go down and then up to the sunshine. And of course, some coaching needs to stay in that place. It's a process session, being with them where they need to be. And it doesn't have to end with action and accountability. It could well be what more needs processing before our next session. And then the other thing here, making sure it's coaching the person and not the topic or the issue. And also sometimes with new coaches, it's worded as, I mean, I'm being flippant here, but what is your problem that you need to solve in this session? Whereas sessions may be about, this is going great in my life. What way can I have that even more? All of that is important in coaching. And then another thing that's PCC is encouraging the person being coached to wrap up the session as opposed to the coach. What's your learning for this from the session? What's your biggest takeaways as opposed to the coach? And what we've got out of this session is X, Y, and Z, which is a little bit more, well, number one, it may raise things that aren't as important to the coachee, but also it's more teacher-like. Any comments there? Okay, one comment in the box. Seeing continuing improvement. Oh, also to see strong self-motivation. Yeah, if you're feeling as a coach it's hard work, you're probably trying too hard. And then a nice formula to think about is 80-20. And people say with MCC, you almost don't see the MCC coach, you're hearing and experiencing the actual coachee. So moving towards the next one. 3 we've got here because I'm conscious of time. Really establishing the goal for the session is an indication of PCC. What do you need to get out of this session? What will achieving that in this session bring to you, to your teams, to your family, etc.? What if it's not addressed? What specifically is bringing this at this time or this day? Those types of really establishing, I've got a little video on that, I can send it round to everyone, really establishing the goals for the session and bringing in the measures. What way will we measure the effectiveness of this session? And of course, they can be qualitative and quantitative. That nice check-in at the end, how are you feeling now on this topic? Or 2 out of 10. And at the end of the session, what are you experiencing now? And it may be 7 at the end, or it may only be 3, but that is a measure of, you know, moving forward. And then on the competency 4, trust and safety, fostering nurtures, encourages integrity, draws on the coach's strengths. Absolutely important. It's not just about development, it's strengthening the strengths even more. It's related to Gestalt, being more of ourselves in the world. And then just pointing out a few things here, that no or but, trying to reduce that completely at PCC level because we are totally non-judgmental. And then tapping into what is beyond the words, noticing what we can see. For example, that when a coachee puts their hands on their head, I notice you put your hand near your head. What's that about? That type of beyond the words. And then obviously mutual trust. So in the chat box there, I love the question about getting specific. I will share the video, Kathy, absolutely. I'm just giggling to myself because I did it about 8 times. And my daughter's doing media studies, so she's helping me with videos. So that's a growth edge for me, so be kind. And then moving on to competency 5, maintains presence. It's all about, I'm thinking it's all about the base, it's all about them. They are the king and queen of their session. And then I mentioned the check-in halfway through. And at PCC, there's nothing wrong with us saying, say more. However, that's so wide. What we want to do is like a sieve, get the essence. What specifically needs to be said around X? Can you see how that hones in on what's needed? And then there is a belief, and there's evidence behind it, that us saying thank you for them sharing, if we say the thank you too much, it impacts the power as if they're being kind to us to share. Some people disagree on this one, but the idea around that is the less we say, the better. So I'm actually jumping across now to the bottom bit of competency 6, being with silence. If we say aha and yes and wow and great, that shifts the energy in that second. Whereas we stay in the energy where they're at, they'll go deeper. And we shift the energy to go to some new learning. Okay, and then just moving up the competencies on the 6. So inquiring about their perspectives in their world, the wider systems coming in there. And I've mentioned the non-verbal and the words and patterns. I noticed that you've said ought to, or I've noticed you've said job interview 10 times in this session. What else needs to be said around that? So the words and the patterns are important as well. And the energy that they say it, is it here or here when they're saying it? Now moving to 7. We want deep, thought-provoking aha moments, learning in the session. So I actually hear coaches say things like, what do you feel about this? Even better is, what are you experiencing? The reason for that is, if we say, what are you feeling? We are just giving them an invitation to tell us what they're feeling. What are you experiencing? Maybe what they can taste, touch, smell, all sorts of things somatically as well. So it's more expansive to use what are you experiencing. And then try and avoid the either or, because there's so many more things in the middle. So instead of, is it this or this? That's not a major disaster in the slightest. However, what specifically is this about? That will get us there quicker. Okay. And then we've talked about the open-ended. On the right on my screen, under the competency 8, BMC, belief in them. Keep the momentum going and celebrating together, even the small steps and the big, massive achievements as well. That's embedded into the PCC competencies and the transition planning element we mentioned before. And here's a beautiful thing. Asking the coachee, what way do we need to end this session? What way do you want us to end this session today? So the onus is on them. It's beautiful. It's really powerful as well. Now the slides, there is obviously more than everything I've pointed out, and I will share them with you. So think about this. What are you noticing right now in yourself as a reflection of your learning from this session, cognitively, somatically in your body, emotionally, intuitively. You may want to think about what are your major rock star strengths and what is your biggest growth edge. If anyone wants to speak out, do. Keep it to yourself if you choose, or type it in the chat box. And Tracy, thank you for being with us, and good night. I know you've got to dip off. Really great to have you here.
Right, good night.
Thank you, Claire. It was great.
Thank you. And thanks for your input. Sylvia, deeper and wider. Yes, Yusuf.
Yes, Dr. Claire, I feel much more in tune with the principles and meanings of your great insights. And I feel like I'm learning more and more from what I saw today. Thank you very much.
Shukran jazilan. Thank you. And also, Yusuf, don't you agree? The more we practice and then go to the learning, and that cycle, double and triple loop learning, we then go out and practice it again, and it becomes embedded in who we are.
Yes, 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 for sure. For sure. It's great stuff.
You.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to share?
By the way, is this recorded, the video?
It's recorded and it's been live streamed. So yes, we can get you the recording, absolutely.
Fantastic. There's a lot of learning, and I know I missed a lot of it. Thank you. Thank you.
And then obviously you've got the 2 passwords. Email us those 2 passwords and which session you were in, so that you can claim, if you wish to claim, your CCE. So we've got great session, keeping the brain alive, feeling more in love with the PCC markers. Brilliant. That's nice. Relax with the process. Oh, that makes that triggered something in me then that feels really it feels warm. So the last bit, I'm sorry, I planned way too much. We cannot practice right now. I'll do another session where we can all have a go and practice. That was the idea. The mentor coaching feedback, you'll get the slides. Here's some top tips in terms of providing feedback. My favorite one here is ensuring that it's a generative and developmental dialogue, and the focus holistically as well as fine details. And as I mentioned previously, we've got an 8-week, well, it actually works out 9 because of a holiday in the middle of it, because of New Year and other festivals going on. So there's a certification in mental coaching. There's more details on those slides there, which I'll also send round to everyone. And it provides 40 ICF CCE. And there's a recap of the other things we'll be discussing in the other 1.5 hour sessions over the next 8 weeks. And if anyone's got one thing they want to share as an actionable task that they're taking away, that they're going to ensure that they practice, now is your time to share. Few people typing there. Ooh, there's a lot. It's a pleasure, Sylvia. Be more playful. Yeah. Even role playing there. So helpful. And I need to, yeah. Cool. Lots of nice comments in there. The question at the end of the session. Thank you all for being here and for playing and for being active and embodying. And just to let you know, I'm doing this session again in 3 hours. If any of you have time to, I'll even put my mobile in here because WhatsApp can be quicker. Any feedback on this session so I can make it even better for the next session, I would absolutely love it and appreciate it. So if you want to send it, oh, sorry, I've sent it to just Tracy there. There we go. There's my mobile if you wish to WhatsApp, or I can stay on if anyone wants to feedback now or to type in the chat box. And if you're leaving, great to have you and see you soon. Have a good day. Pleasure, Khalid. So you don't need to be ICF. We actually have an ACTP program, and we've had people who, for example, have trained with ILM. I'm actually master practitioner with the MCC as well, so I know a lot of other programs. What we do